Jacob told him he saw them getting comfortable together. Marcel says that's what grown folks do. Maybe Jacob could do that too if he spent more time with his wife, which was quite shady. Jacob not even fighting back from that, just taking it in his whisper voice. Happy Monday, fellow Beyond the Gates fans. We are in for another week after today's Monday episode of the show. A lot of the show still dealing with the fallout of Anita's cancer and all this gene testing that Nicole and Dani need to do so that their kids can see if they need to get tested for the gene or not. But at least we did have some Leslie and Marcel and Shanice to kind of break up that story a little bit today. We also had a Ted and Andre talk, so I'm going to start with Ted and Andre, I think, for now. Talked about this a bit yesterday in the preview for the week, with Andre starting to feel a little worried about how every time Dani is worried about her loved ones, she turns to something familiar, and that something familiar is usually Bill, and that connection and foundation that they have together. And Andre did a lot of talking with Ted today about how he feels like he has to compete with that foundation that Dani and Bill already made together a long time ago. His and Dani's marriage is still very new, as is their entire relationship, really. I mean, they have been, friends with benefits for quite a while, but they didn't really get closer, or at least realize they were getting so closer until over these past few months when they got married in Vegas. The end of the episode was Andre and Dani taking a nap together, and Andre putting a blanket over her and saying he's got her always, which was a sweet moment. Andre continues to be that guy that really wants to be there for Dani and make things work. I like how loving Andre's always been for Dani, actually. If we go back to when they were friends with benefits, he was always the one there for her. Even when her family didn't know how much she was drinking, Andre was the one trying to help her with her drinking problem. So actually, even though Andre is worried about that foundation that Bill and Dani have had for so long, I do feel like Andre has helped really build a really solid foundation for him and Dani, and I think it's good for them as a couple on this show. Now, at the beginning of the episode, Dani started with Nicole because they are waiting to get tested for that potential cancer gene. Nicole had some talk about having Ted's favorite office snacks in her office. I did like the line from Dani about how Ted's snack choice is as bad as his choice in side pieces. That was pretty funny. And then Nicole also continued to talk about how she's worried about Kat, who's being stubborn about not wanting to be tested for this gene if Nicole is indeed the one that ends up having the gene. We'll circle back to Nicole in a while. I do want to get to Leslie and Shanice arguing at the beginning of the episode. I was honestly glad to see Leslie and Shanice on today to break up the cancer storyline a little bit. It's been pretty much the prominent story for like 3, if not 4 episodes in a row. So it was good to get some Shanice and Leslie and Ted's storyline for me personally. And I also like how Shanice is the person that is always willing to give it back to Leslie, but she always gives it back to Leslie with a smile on her face because she's usually at work doing her job as a nurse, but she still gets in her shade on Leslie. Leslie did not like Shanice smiling today and told Shanice that her smile better not be because she's daydreaming of Leslie's teddy bear. Shanice has been getting close to Ted, and Leslie has realized that and even spied on Shanice arriving to Ted's hotel room at one point a couple weeks ago, I believe. Leslie was looking for Ted, but he wasn't in the office today. He was out having lunch with Andre, and Leslie learned that from Shanice and accused Shanice of keeping track of Ted's schedule. Shanice threw it back at her that Leslie is the stalker. So Shanice getting a little more and more blunt with Leslie in this, which I like to see, which I think is good for their potential rivalry over Ted, I suppose. I don't know if that's exactly where they're going, but it very well could be. And Shanice is a good person for that because she is someone on this show that is willing to throw it back in Leslie's face, which we don't see enough of, quite frankly. Later in the episode, Ted and Shanice had a conversation, and Shanice told him that Nicole was kind of going through it in her office. Ted did make dinner plans with Shanice later in the cafeteria, so we are still building to that Shanice and Ted relationship. And I don't really know if Ted is the man worth fighting for versus Leslie, because as we all know, Ted usually ain't shit. But the writers have been trying to change Ted when it comes to being a better father to his children. Maybe they will also change Ted being a better relationship material, frankly. Ted did go to comfort Nicole afterwards in her office, and she had his favorite snacks there, which was, I guess, a good moment for those two. Kind of confused about what they're doing with Nicole. I kind of feel like Nicole is becoming a character similar to like Eva and even Leslie, characters that are lacking a direction. I think Nicole is one of those characters when it comes to her relationship, because for so long they were making her wanting to move on from Ted and not take him back, but also not wanting to move on with Carlton. Suddenly that's been a 180 on the Nicole and Carlton situation. But they are also making Nicole and Ted get more friendly. And then she also had that date with Kyle and made a second date, but we haven't seen him in weeks. So Nicole seems a little directionless to me on a relationship level, but I'm assuming that Nicole is going to be the one to test positive for the cancer gene and not Dani. That's the way I see it playing out, because Kat's being so stubborn, and then a lot of you are saying that maybe Kat won't have the cancer gene, but somehow in the future Eva will figure out she does, and then Eva's Nicole's daughter, and that's going to be some soap opera mess if that ever happens, and it very well could. It's kind of a big moment that the show might need in the future. But as for Ted and Nicole, I mean, I'm okay with them being friends. Leslie moved on to run into Marcel. They were both all up in their leather jackets, which I thought was kind of funny, like they were both biker gang members or something. They were getting nice and comfy with each other, and Jacob saw them getting nice and comfy with each other, and we all know Jacob has been trying to investigate Leslie and failing for quite a while now, and he used to be partners with Marcel, and he doesn't like seeing those two out together. Marcel had a good line being shady to Jacob when Jacob told him he saw them getting comfortable together. Marcel says that's what grown folks do. Maybe Jacob could do that too if he spent more time with his wife, which was quite shady. Jacob not even fighting back from that, just taking it in his whisper voice. Leslie came back and did even more flirting with Marcel in front of Jacob, saying she wants to see Marcel's concealed weapon later. There was a lot of funny lines today that did at least make me chuckle a little bit. So did like that line too. And then they later did hook up at the hotel. Maybe all that leather was for us to see them as like BDSM, a little sexual delinquency from Leslie and Marcel. That's how they acted after they had their sex in the hotel room. Marcel telling Leslie that she exceeded his expectations and that his wife is a kitten compared to her. Leslie was complaining about all these men staying with their boring women like it's a chore, but they do it anyway. That was a shot at Ted and Nicole probably from Leslie. I'm glad Marcel and Leslie hooked up, frankly. And I do continue to want to see where they're going with these two being a thing, because we all know Marcel is a shady cop working for Joey. They're starting to put Leslie in Joey's orbit too. Joey also seems to be on contract now. John Lindstrom seems to be on contract now. He was in the opening credits, so he might have taken Derek's place as a contract player, which even on recurring he was on a lot, so I can see why they did that, but I just wish Joey wasn't stuck with Vanessa. Speaking of people like Joey and Vanessa, season 2 starting, and we have the same conversations I feel like Tomas and Kat are always having. And I continue to question why Tomas is even a thing on this show. The only thing worse than Tomas as a character is having to watch Vanessa and Joey have the same fights over and over as of late. But I'm sure we'll get to that at some point this week too. Today we had to deal with Tomas, though. Still as robotic as ever, even in season 2. As Tomas tried to help a hungover Kat, he brought something to help with her headache, which tasted nasty, but she tried to drink it anyway. Tomas was continuing to try and help Kat, but Kat wanted some alone time. Meanwhile, Jacob and Naomi were talking about the cancer of Anita's. Naomi worried that Anita's cancer treatment is going to be poison to Anita's body, and it's going to take her energy and take her hair. And Naomi was considering taking time off of work to help Anita more daily. Chelsea, meanwhile, met up with Madison because she's been stressed out, of course, about the cancer gene and all of that. Chelsea wanted Madison to be her doctor today and not her girlfriend, and doctor-splain to her, be straight with her about what Anita's going to have to go through. Now, Madison's not an expert in the cancer field, but she has been doing some research, told her about her aunt that did not try to do anything about her cancer early, and it didn't work out for her. That tied into Chelsea, Naomi, and Kat all getting together, and Kat continuing to not want to talk about the situation and try to ignore it. But Naomi and Chelsea weren't having that. Chelsea did tell Kat about Madison's aunt, who didn't do anything in time with the cancer, as to try and get through to Kat. Saying that she wants her and Kat and Naomi to be alive for a long time. But Kat just continued to try and ignore the situation, which is why I think Nicole will be the one to test positive, and Kat's going to continue to have to deal with this issue. Tomas later ran into Jacob complaining about Kat being so independent. He has such a hard time comforting her and helping her. Jacob could relate because he says that's how the Dupree women are, and Naomi is similar, and Jacob and Naomi have been having a lot of problems. Honestly, just two couples on the show that are not good TV in Kat and Tomas, and Jacob and Naomi. I think that about covers it, though. That was today's episode as a whole. The Anita stuff, and Anita wasn't even on today, but the cancer fallout continues because we got to get this testing over with for the Nicole and Dani part of the story, which might shift to being a Nicole and Kat story with the cancer gene or no cancer gene for Kat. We'll see how that all plays out. Good to see Shanice put it to Leslie today, though, and they continue to build Shanice and Ted, which I'm trying to be open-minded to. I don't hate it. I mean, I just like Chenise, so that's kind of easy for me to watch. And then Marcel and Leslie hook up today, which is also good for their story to hopefully speed it up a little, and we can see what Marcel is really up to. Marcel is going through a divorce and losing half his pension, and he very well could be trying to swindle Leslie out of money, which I think would be kind of good to see.